Up in the place, I see you getting down. Can't help but look at you, got a crowd around you. Now you're the baddest thing I've seen tonight, so come on, girl, let's put it in the fire. I've got the V12600 sitting outside of the door, so bring it on. Now don't need your body's next door. Dance a little on the place, I see you getting down. Can't help but look at you, got a crowd around you. Now you're the baddest thing I've seen tonight, so come on, girl, let's put it in the fire. I've got the V12600 sitting outside of the door, so bring it on. Now don't need your body's next door. Dance a little on the place, I see you getting down. Can't believe it, she got cut around you. You're the baddest thing I've seen tonight, so come on, girl, put it in the fire. I got the V12600 sitting outside of the door, so bring it on. Everybody's next door. Dance a little on the place, I see you getting down. Can't believe it, she got cut. Me and you, lost in my group. Maybe we can peel back the roof and get it on. Did I say your body's place from? I like the little thing around your navel, baby. Wanna pass me, girl, what's it gon' be? Show me how it's on me. Talking sex to them, what you gon' do? Tell them what you gon' do me. Wanna pass me, girl, what's it gon' be? Show me how it's on me. Sex to them, what you gon' do?
Yeah, and it's fine, you a bad little bitch. Got you spinning like Rihanna, but you ain't a savage. Big K got me on my rap shit. I've been to doing with like foreigner whip 4 from the 6. Got on my mind when I'm here. I bet these niggas thought I died last year, right? Nah, I'm back, bitch. I mean, there's something about a little stendo with that clip. Hold that motherfucker like I'm holding on my dick, son. Stop playing, nigga. Look, why the fuck you think we here? How we get this?
She made us drink the drink. We drunk and drunk, and now I know she thinks I'm cool. She gave me a wink, I winked back, and man, I think that we gon' have fun at my spot tonight. I like a party girl. Ooh, if you're looking for me, I'm at the party girl. Okay, I like a party girl. If you're looking for me, I'm at the party girl. Okay,
I'ma tell you this one time. Boy, I want you to be mine. Can I come see you now? Can I lay with you outside? Can I touch your lips with mine? 'Cause I need you now. Don't wanna leave, I just wanna be here by your side. You make me feel, I believe that we in paradise. 'Cause I don't feel the ground. No, I don't feel the ground. But I'm feeling right. I tell you what it's all about. 'Cause it make me feel this way. It's kinda like, oh, you make me feel I believe it beyond. Nothing like what we love now. I look away from time to time. All I seek's you right now. Just wanna lay with you all night. Feel your body next to mine. Boy, I need you now. Don't wanna leave, I just wanna be here by your side. You make me feel, I believe that we in paradise. 'Cause I don't feel the ground. No, I don't feel the ground. But I'm feeling right. I tell you what it's all about. It's making me feel this way. And it's kinda like, oh, you make me feel, I believe it beyond.
Four of you were really cheap, yeah. 'Cause only two of you had dinner. I found your credit card receipt. It's not right, but it's okay. I'm gonna make it anyway. Pack your bags up and leave.
chasing. Look at what we lost, baby. Somewhere else, don't let me nowhere else. I got it all right here. That's my obsession with you. Always feel brand new. There ain't nothing better now. Maybe something better now. Always feel brand new. There ain't nothing better now. Maybe something better now. I'm missing on your touch, yeah. All I wanna do, all I wanna go, baby, go, baby. All I wanna do, all I wanna go, baby, go, baby. All I wanna do, all I wanna go, baby, go, baby. All I wanna do, all I wanna go, baby, go, baby.
I don't know what it is that you've done to me, but it's caused me to act in such a crazy way. Whatever it is that you do when you do what you're doing, it's a feeling that I want to stay. 'Cause my heart stops beating, my heart stops beating, my heart stops beating, my heart stops beating, my heart stops beating triple time with your on my mind. Please.
What's going on, family? What's going on? Hope you can see me and hear me. Put a 5 in the YouTube stream if you guys can see me and hear me okay. I don't have my extra monitor today because I'm on the go, so just want to make sure the technicals and the visuals are all working well. But I am very, very excited for today's crypto and assets call. We're going to be diving into a couple of things. One, the fundamentals, as always. That's kind of like make more my half of the call, and then Gil's going to hop in halfway through and dive into some of the technicals and things of that nature. And so, recently we've been speaking a lot more about stocks, a lot more about the traditional side of the markets and investing, and just how important that is, and also how you can do that, right? Because a lot of people give information but without the actionable steps. So I want to make sure that you guys practically and physically know where to go and how to do these things. So as always, we're going to start the call with what went on in the week, which is key. We like to speak about the news because the news affects the markets, as you know. The phrase is news is the excuse, which means news is the excuse to move the markets inevitably where it was going to go anyway. And that's kind of the relationship between technicals and fundamentals, right? It's kind of, you see things on the charts. For those of you who are traders, you look at trading view and you're like, oh, there's an imbalance there, or oh, market structure is telling me potential future bearish movement. And then all of a sudden there's some news event or there's some fundamental that comes out that basically pushes or forces the market down to fill that imbalance or down to move bearish. So news is the excuse for that. That's kind of the relationship there. But let's talk about what's going on in crypto. We always start the call in that way. Now, the first thing I want to speak about is Spain's largest bank buys Bitcoin. And hopefully you guys can see my screen. Let me know in the stream if you cannot see my screen. But this is interesting because normally we hear about companies, we hear about institutions buying Bitcoin, but it's kind of rare that an actual bank, right, is buying Bitcoin, a commercial bank. And so this Spanish bank, Banco Santander, they revealed a $4.3 million Bitcoin investment. Now, this is not a direct Bitcoin investment that's OTC, over the counter, but what this is they actually made an investment into the BlackRock's iShares Bitcoin Trust. And so that fund is then buying Bitcoin. So the bank has a stake in the fund and the fund is purchasing Bitcoin. And so they purchased 129,000 shares of Bitcoin. So this is important news because, as I mentioned, it's not a company, it's not MicroStrategy, it's an actual bank buying Bitcoin. And as you know, you want to follow where the big money moves. Why? Because the big money, they know what they're doing. They have 50, 60, 70 years worth of track record of producing a certain annualized return every single year on average. And so that track record, it clearly works. It's positive and it's profitable. So you want to follow where they go. And the second reason why you want to follow where they go is because they actually move the market. Their investments, their trades physically shows up on the charts. And so if you were to make a $100 trade that was a buy, or if you was to make a $100 investment in any of these, mid to large cap cryptos or stocks, it's not going to move the market. You're not going to see that occur, but you will if there's a $100 million investment or a $1 billion investment into a project or into a company. I remember back in 2021, 2022, I had a friend who actually had a substantial amount of money, and with a low cap crypto, cap means capitalization, it just means the size of the crypto. With a low cap project, he literally did a buy trade on this project, and we all in a room, right, physically watched his green candle show up on the charts. Like, he had enough money with a small project that when he made that trade, the market literally moved up, and I physically saw it. And I said to myself, this is incredible. Like, this is how the banks are like in the markets. This is how they move it. How can you lose when the size of capital you have is so big that you can see the candle pop up live in action, right? So I just found that really, really interesting. So that was the news I wanted to mention there. And of course, this BlackRock ETF is a Bitcoin ETF. And so that investment was made. And let's go to the second piece of news, which is Ondo leads the tokenized stock market. This is something we pretty much knew already, but I just wanted to reinforce this because Ondo, as you know, is a real world assets project, RWA, and Ondo actually tokenizes US treasuries. So US debt is now tokenized into the blockchain, and Ondo has JP Morgan as a partner, which is just like credibility is incredible. Now let's go over to the article here on Yahoo Finance, because we like to go to credible places. And on, where we look for data, by the way, like where we search up things, resource is important, because who you learn from is like super, super important. And so for me, Yahoo Finance and Decrypt, DECRYPT, those are the main resources and sites I go to. I feel like it's the most unbiased, and there's a lot of in-depth knowledge that's broken down for you to understand. So Ondo leads the tokenized stock market as Wall Street moves on chain. We already know that that was something that was happening. And so if we scroll down here, you're going to see some graphs, some data, which just shows you the growth of the real world asset space. Now, looking at this chart here, guys, from 2025 to 2026 June, there's a couple of things that I noticed from this chart. Now, whenever you're looking at data, it's very easy to get confused. It's very easy to get, manipulated or stuck. But what you want to do is you want to just find 2 or 3 key points that you can remember when looking at data. And the first thing I see when I look at this, guys, is I see a trend that's upwards. Super, super simple. I see the tokenized stock market growing exponentially from last year June to this year June. The second thing I notice, and maybe you notice this too, is look at the AI and chip section. Look at the orange. What do you see? Well, what I see is in the past 9 months, exceptional growth. Like that particular industry was not there 12 months ago in the tokenized stock place. Now it is. And this makes sense because the companies, the fast growing industry that everybody's got their eyes on, that everyone's trying to invest in, everyone's trying to create a company in, is in the AI and data space. So this completely aligns with what we've been seeing in the real world. So this was very interesting to see. Now, as you scroll down, this chart, this pie chart is really showing you the significance of Ondo in the tokenized space. The tokenized stock space, guys, they have, as you can see, almost a 50% stake in that entire industry. That is huge. That is absolutely massive. Now, this is another reason why I'm an advocate for Ondo, because as I said, Ondo tokenizes US debt. So in order for the crypto project Ondo to fail or to be, you can say, liquidated or bankrupt, well, in that case, then the US government would have to default on their debts. Now, the US government have a lot of debt, but defaulting means, by the way, like they won't be able to make their payments every month or every year. But the US government has never defaulted on their debt in the entire history of the country, by the way. So long story short, that's never going to happen, which basically means it's very hard for Ondo to just go from like a company to completely gone, especially when you have partners such as JP Morgan and I think BlackRock as well, not 100% on that, who are invested and partnered with Ondo themselves. As I mentioned, right, you want to be invested in the large companies, the companies that have the sizable stake in that industry, especially when it comes to the crypto industry. Why? Because it's new. Bitcoin only came here in really January 2009, December 2008. This is a new industry. This isn't something that has, 15 to 20 years worth, or it has 15, but this isn't something that has 20 years worth of history and data to back it up, right? It's not like stocks where we can go back and say, oh, this index fund has 20 plus years of history, therefore I'm going to invest. So this is something to keep in mind. We get excited with low cap projects. We get excited with the incredible returns of 200, 300, 400% in less than a year, in a month even. But the reality is the majority of your portfolio should be in large caps. It should be in the layer ones. It should be in the XRPs and the Ethereums and the Bitcoins. That's where the majority of the money should be going. And you can have some fun, of course, with the smaller cap projects, but keep that down to a low, 10 to 25% of your portfolio type of deal. So that's important to know. So that's Ondo. That they are completely leading the tokenized space. We've spoken about Ondo, by the way, for like the past 2+ years. And even though most of this, it's not a low cap, but even though most of the kind of like mid cap projects out there, and some of the large cap are significantly below all-time high, you got to remember that when the market is quiet, look for the companies that are building, look for the companies that are active. Go to their X, go to their Reddit, go to their website. Are they fulfilling their roadmap? Because let me tell you this, if the crypto project or if the stock are fulfilling what they promised in bearish times, right, when the market is bleeding, when the market is red, that is a massive positive bullish sign. That probably means that they're here to stay. So that's really important to understand. Now, I'm going to send this copy invitation. I'm going to send this to Gil because Gil's going to be hopping on in about 15 minutes. So let me go ahead and send him this Zoom, and then we can get this thing started. Let me send this to him right now. And put a 10 in the chat if you guys are learning something. Put a 10 in the chat if you guys feel like, hey, like I'm already getting value. You know, maybe I'm taking notes, maybe I'm driving, maybe I'm at home studying, whatever it is. Put a 10 if you feel like you are learning something here. So let me go ahead and inform Gil. Sent to your email. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And then we're going to resume the call right now. So let's talk about stocks. That's the next part of the call that I wanted to touch on. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And we're going to talk about some interesting things with stocks. So I wanted to speak about stocks. Now that we're done with the crypto side of the call, I wanted to touch on a couple of things here. Now, the first thing is how to invest in pre and post market in the stock market. Second thing is when can you deposit funds into your stockbroker? And the third thing is which index funds are best for me to have. Now, let's start with number one, how to invest pre and post market. So I have some screenshots on the following pages, and I'm going to show you what I was looking at on Friday regarding Meta and Apple. And so, as we know, when it comes to stocks, there's different brokers that you can have. Fidelity, Charles Schwab, eToro, Robinhood. These are brokers. These are places that, these are accounts that you can have that you can then buy into index funds, buy into ETFs, or you can directly buy individual stocks in the tech industry, in the AI industry, in the healthcare industry, security, you absolutely name it. Each broker has a different variety of assets that you can buy. Each broker has different fees. Each broker has different TOS, terms of services, which is also important to know. Now, me personally, I have Fidelity. It's just the simplest to use in my sense. It has a good variety. The fees aren't too bad. And it's just something that I'm used to. So that's what I have. We should all on this call, whether you're in Powerhouse or not in Powerhouse, have a broker, but we should all also be investing in the stock market. Simple as that, right? If you line up 100 millionaires, guys, 100 of those millionaires have a stockbroker and an account, and it's going to be probably in the 7 figures. If we line up 100 millionaires, maybe like 10 to 20 of them have exposure to the crypto space. So that just shows you where you need to be and why. So on the right side, you guys can see, I took this screenshot on Friday. Meta, as you know, which is Facebook and all the others, Mark Zuckerberg runs it. And so this is on TradingView. Now, as you can see on Friday, this was pre-market. So remember, 9:30 Eastern to 4 p.m. is the stock market hours. Now, this was prior to 9:30 a.m. Eastern. So what's interesting, what a lot of you may not know, is it shows you the pre-market pricing in orange. The blue is the end of Thursday. That's the end of Thursday where the market was at. But remember, there's certain trading happening after the market and before the market. Now, it is not common, NOT, not common to have the pre-market at, what is this? Like 10%, like almost 10% lower than where the market ended on Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. That is not common. Now, the reason why I say it's not common is because although there is trading, now let me just pin myself real quick. Although there is trading occurring, having the pre-market 10% or so below where it was yesterday is not normal. Now, the reason why is because Meta had earnings. They had an earnings report come out. a Q2 earnings. Now in stocks, the earnings reports are so important. They are reporting on the financials for that quarter and how they performed. Meta performed worse than expected for quarter 2. And when that announcement came out, this was not during market hours. So that's why you see that 10% drop. And if I go to Google and I search Meta earnings Q2, what you're going to see, guys, Meta stock sinks as Q2 earnings disappoint on multiple fronts. Stock sinks nearly 10% after profits were missed. So when I did my research, they basically came below expectations for quarter 2. Now, EPS is earnings per share. We don't need to get into what that is. I've spoke about it on previous calls, but just keep it simple. It was expected, analysts expected a $7 EPS for Meta for Q2. But what happened is they actually came out and made a $6 EPS for Q2. That is a $1 less than expectation. And as we know, what's important with the market is the expectation, not always the result. If people are forecasting you to perform at this level, and for Q2 you perform at this level, you've now disappointed the market, right? You've now not fulfilled what was expected of you as a company and as a stock. And as a publicly traded stock, your number one priority is to satisfy shareholders. Write that down. Your number one priority is to fulfill your shareholders. That's important. And obviously your number one goal is profit maximization as well. So when we go back to here, this is what the drop was about. Now, if we move on to my next slide, I want to touch on something real quick, which is, well, I mentioned when you deposit funds, right? You can deposit between 9:30 Eastern and 4 p.m. Eastern. Now, when you deposit, you go from your Chase account or your First United account or your whatever account that you have. You then send money from that bank account into your stock brokerage account. And the question is like, how do you do that? Well, this is really important. And this is like my screenshot. So I'm going to show you guys right here, real life. When you deposit money, guys, from your bank account into a stockbroker account, you're putting in the routing number of obviously that company, right? So for Fidelity, the entity name that they use is National Financial Services LLC, as you can see here. So you put that in when it comes to withdrawing, right? When you're withdrawing funds, sending a wire is a better way to put it. You put National Financial Services LLC, and then you put the routing number of that, which is, you know, XYZ, blah, 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 blah. However, the routing number and the name of the bank for that brokerage is not all of the information that you need. What you need is your unique account number. And your unique account number needs to go in the section that is stated for the recipient, which is the person receiving the funds, where you're sending it to. If you don't put your unique account number when it comes to the wire information, your money will not go to your account. It will go to just the bank, just the entity. But Fidelity have millions of accounts around the globe. So how do they know where to send the money? They don't, because you didn't put your unique account number. So what happens when you don't put your unique account number when you're sending a wire into your supposed account? Two things. Number one, they will either reverse the wire back into your bank. And this is what happened with me. You see on the left-hand side, I sent a test wire. Always send a test wire if you've never sent money to that account before. Always, which is what I did. I sent a test wire of $50. But you want to know what happened? Wire reversal, which means the $50 was sent to the bank. And the bank said, oh, there's no unique account number. I don't know where to send this money. So they sent it back to the sender, which was my own Chase account. That's one thing that can happen. But the second thing can also happen as well, guys. The second thing is the worst scenario, where you send the money and the money's lost. The money's lost. They don't know where, who, how to send it back. Now you have to call people. Now you have to go through that process. You don't want to do that. So it's so important that you know and you write down whether you got eToro, Fidelity, Robinhood, it doesn't matter what account, Charles Schwab, make sure you put your unique account number into the wire information when you're sending it. I hope that makes sense. That's really, really, really important. Also, the second thing is important. Always send a test wire whenever it's a new account or an account you've never sent money to before, just in case, just in case. So let's go back to the pre and post market situation. Now, I recognized that with Meta, they failed on expectations when it comes to Q2 earnings. This was on Friday. So what did I do? I said, you know what? The stock is going to not surge, but it's going to go back to the similar levels that it was at. This decrease, this 10% drop is temporary. Like Meta's going to be here for the next 20, 30, 40 years. But I think that even though pre-market it's trading 10% below where the market's at, I think it's going to go back up, you know, a few percent. And so if we go to the chart, I'm going to show you guys something. I'm going to go to Meta and I'm going to show you. So I think it's on there. There we go. So as you can see, let's go to the 15-minute chart. As you can see, I invested in Meta at 542. 542. This was pre-market. Pre-market 542. So you can look at it as like here. I invested there. You guys see that? And now the market is trading up here. So my opinion, my analysis was correct because it's now rebalancing. You see this massive gap here, guys? You see this massive gap? This gap was all to do with pre-market, the announcement of the Q2 earnings. That's why it dropped so significantly. But now look where the market's heading. It's heading back up to fill that gap, probably back to the 590 zone. So investing at 542, which I did pre-market, now we're at 556, 542, 556. Maybe that's like it's not many, maybe it's like 3%. But we're probably on our way. We're creating higher highs back up to this point. And when we get back up to this point, now I'm like 10% up. Now I'm like 8 to 10% up on my investment. So that is how you can play the market when it comes to pre and post market and when it comes to earning reports. Because as you can see here, because it was pre-market, guys, what you have to do, and this is on Fidelity, but it works the same in all brokers, what you have to do is you have to set a limit, or a market, by the way, but I believe it's a limit. And this was after hours. I think I did it after hours on Thursday. This is after hours. So 542 is my limit. What that means is after hours and like before hours, so Thursday night to Friday early morning, as trading's going on, if the market comes back down to 542, then my trade is executed. And this is the second screenshot. You see this? We've got your order. 5 shares of Meta executed at 542. Now, let's go to the right. This now is confirmed, as you can see. 5 shares is the quantity. 542 is the average price, the average cost I got in. And this was the amount. And this is my account. So now, and also look at it, 556. So it's already kind of rebalancing back up to the market. So that's just an example. And then as you can see here, this was the example of like, if you want to buy pre or post market, this is what it's going to look like. This is what it's going to look like. So that's an example. Put a 10 in the chat if this is making sense, guys. Put a 10 if this is making sense. Gil, my phone died, brother. So just message in the Zoom if you need to. But put a 10 in the chat if this makes sense. I'm going to pause for like 10 seconds so you guys can do that. There's a slight delay. Okay. Okay. All good. So now I'm going to touch on one more. Oh, actually, let me go to the chart real quickly because this is important to understand, guys. Before I dive into index funds, if we look at the S&P, let's go to the 4-hour time frame. Actually, let's go to the daily. I want to show you guys something in a minute. So take a look at this, photographically like screenshot it, because this is gonna tie into what I'm gonna talk on next. Now, we're gonna talk about index funds because the third thing here was which index funds are best for me to have. Now, everybody should have some form of investment in an index fund, some form of an investment. An index fund is a stock or a fund, you can say, but it is a stock that has multiple stocks within that stock. Simple as that. You can invest into the fund and the fund has an investment in like 100 or in 500 different stocks. So there's diversification occurring. Now, index funds are really where multimillionaires hold most of their money. The reason why is because it's safer, there's diversification, and there's a proven track record of successful, profitable returns. Now, you're not going to get the 100%, 200% that you get in the crypto space potentially. You're not going to get the same, super high growth as you get if you're investing in a tech stock or in a like medical cannabis stock or in a AI database stock. However, what you get is security. So important. Now, take a screenshot of this because this is the 5 index funds that I personally would recommend, right? And you don't have to get all of them, of course, but you want to look at 1 or 2 of them as an investment. Now, QQQ, it says here what it is. It's the 100 largest non-financial NASDAQ stocks, and it's tech-based. NVIDIA, Apple, things of that nature. Now, when you're looking at tech, guys, you're looking at a higher potential growth, higher ROI, but you're also looking at higher volatility. So the same way it can go 90% up in a year is the same way it can go 90% down in a year, okay? You got VOO, which tracks the S&P 500, which is the 500 largest US companies, 15% average in the past 10 years. That's the average annual return. You've got VTI, you've got VT, and you've got IBIT. IBIT is purely Bitcoin, right? So you haven't got 10 years worth of returns because IBIT was a fund that came in 2024. So a little bit more risky, of course. And then obviously you've got VT, which is 10,000 stocks from the US, and international and emerging markets. Emerging markets are markets like India and potentially China and things of that nature. So my personal thing, I'm actually looking to invest in VOO because for me, I want to individually buy tech stocks and fast growing stocks. I don't want to buy in a fund of that because I have a lot of fun and I love researching the tech and the data sort of stocks. So I do that personally directly for individual stocks. But VOO, 15.5% every year, guys, that means if you invest $100,000 at the end of the year, over a 10-year period, you're looking at a $15,000 increase. $15,000 increase. But I'm waiting patiently. You know why? Because look at this for the S&P index. Look at this for the S&P. Daily time frame, massive imbalances, but also an area that I'm looking for the market to come and rebalance to. Now, the question is when? I don't know when. In fact, nobody knows when, right? Of course, no one can predict when. Anyone who says, yeah, this is going to happen on the 28th of December, like, I looked at this, or I looked at the moon cycle, like, okay, like, maybe that's one of the confirmations, but no one can tell you the exact date that price is going to come and rebalance and fill in this area. However, I have cash to the side waiting for when that happens. You know why? Because look at this. The S&P was recently at all-time highs at 7,000, almost 500 now. Well, when it drops down, because it probably will happen, when it drops down to the mid 6,000s, guys, like when that happens, you know what percent of a drop that is for the S&P? That is a like 10 to 15% drop. 10 to 15% drop in the S&P? Well, hold on a minute. These index funds, they typically track the S&P, right? They, like the S&P's investments of those 500 US companies, they have them in their stocks. So what happens to those other index funds? They're going to drop down as well, and they're probably going to drop down steeper than the S&P. So when the S&P drops 10%, yeah, you're probably going to see like a 15 to 20% drop in these stocks. That's when I'm going to deploy the money into VOO. Is this making sense? I'm not gonna deploy the money now. Okay, some of it maybe, like some exposure, But you don't want to put all of it. So if you have $1,000, maybe you say, all right, I'm going to put 500 in now, John Luke, because we don't know for sure if it's going to drop down to there. Maybe it creates higher highs and all-time highs. Well, at least you've got a $500 stake in the S&P at the prices it's at right now. But when it does hopefully drop 10, 15, 20%, you got the funds ready to deploy. Boom, I'm in. And you're in at low prices and you're keeping that investment for the next 15, 20, 30 years. That's how it rolls. I hope that's making sense. I've gone over my time. Apologies, Gil. I needed to get that off, but I hope you learned something from my part of the call. I'm gonna send it now to my boy Gil. Gil's gonna drop some incredible game. You know, I basically like started my trading journey because Gil showed me this information back in the community in 2021, and I started investing really in 2020. And so Gil has years and years and years of experience in the market as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as a trader. So make sure you listen in. Gil, I'm going to pass it over to you, my brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Nah, I appreciate you for coming in here and giving everybody a ton of sauce. But nah, I'm definitely I think a lot of the stuff that John Luke brought up was very needed. And it's honestly really cool part of, and honestly one of my favorite parts about here when it comes to crypto and assets, and something that we're going to be talking about even more and more and more, because again, it comes down to even just understanding where a lot of money has been created, wealth has been created over the past decades, and definitely the stock market. And I just think it's only going to get more popular and more used because a lot of different reasons, like kind of John Luke was talking about in terms of tokenization, which could lead to a 24/7 market for the stock market. So I'm not even going to bring that up right now, but I just want to let y'all know that it's definitely important to be very informed, and obviously that's why you're here. And if you're somebody that's obviously a part of the community, you guys already know the access that we have with the education, and that's the people that myself and John Luke and many others study over and over and over again. So appreciate you, bro, again for going over some great info. And really, for me, I'm not going to be too crazy. John Luke did a great segment when it comes to stocks, pretty in depth, and really just for me is more of like the sentiment in the markets, right? Like there's a lot of great things to understand, and I'm happy that he go more in depth with things. But it's also important to say, okay, well, what is the timing in the market, right? Because timing is a big factor in the market. It's not just about buying and selling. Yeah, you can if you're playing long term. I'm not gonna lie. If you're invested in something like the S&P, you're investing like QQQ, things like that, like you're gonna see the growth over decades, right? Like it's gonna happen. It's statistically proven already, unless the U.S. economy collapses and the U.S. economy dies, which I personally don't really see that happening, even though a lot of people do. I just don't, just because of a lot of different reasons. But it means that over decades of time, you will be progressively growing. But at the same time, a lot of people obviously don't have that mentality, right? Like, looking at the next 30, 40 years, we look at maybe the next year max, the next 2 years max. But really, a lot of us look at the next 6 months. So what kind of other opportunities that you can take advantage of while you're building up to then really go into higher assets and do that? Now, one thing I'll say is this, and John Luke already brought it up. Looking at the stock market, there's two indications you can look at. John Luke already kind of went through it. Is NAS and SPX. These are the two, index funds that you can really look at to give you the sentiment of the stock market. And as you guys can see, we were very high, right? Nasdaq gave us a retracement recently, but S&P technically hasn't yet. And this happens a lot with these two. These, what we call, they're lagging, right? One of them moves before the other one. So personally, I see the same thing that John Luke sees. I can see SPX come a little bit lower, while NASDAQ can also come a little bit lower before it actually wants to go higher. So what does that mean? That means that a lot of the stocks that John Luke even talked about, or, I have here, are going to potentially see retracements. Now, I also will say this. The ones that will be hit the most are the biggest ones. If we have something like the NASDAQ decrease, it's the top 100 tech companies, right? So that means they're the top companies. If NASDAQ is going down, that means all the companies, the top 100, are going down, which are the big companies, right? Things like Apple. And if you can see up here, show you if it's on the NASDAQ, right? Amazon, NASDAQ. Even SpaceX right now is in NASDAQ. And I think actually the decrease, SpaceX played a part in that. And that's something that we talked about. Open was at 150. We talked about that this was going to happen. It actually happened way faster than I thought, which doesn't really surprise me. But I see this maybe coming still lower. Now, is SPX a SpaceX, sorry, a good asset long term? Potentially, it definitely can. But I would like to see the market to really go down before it goes anything higher. So that is something to pay towards too. So my thing is this. This is my perspective when it comes to stocks. Look at the bigger ones, right? Look at the ones that are involved with the Nasdaq, right? Apple just saw a huge dump, and it's crazy. Buy the rumor, sell the news type of thing. Apple just announced a subscription base, for you getting your iPhone. Let's see, look, new iPhone subscription. I think I definitely spelled that wrong, but look, they just announced this. They announced when you can subscribe to Apple, right? Pay a month to month, and you can upgrade. You're basically leasing the phone, and you can upgrade at any time when a new phone comes out. Now, a lot of people are like, okay, is this good? Is this bad? I just want to let y'all know that I saw this, I remember seeing this video not too long ago, maybe like a year ago actually, and it talked about where the revenue of Apple came. Most of Apple's revenue comes from the subscriptions. It doesn't come from the Apple phone sales. It doesn't come from that MacBook sales. It doesn't come from any physical product. It actually comes from subscriptions. And that's what they want to lean on, right? Anything that you're doing good at, you want to do more of it. And they realize that people are more likely to be on subscriptions because it's cheaper. Obviously, it costs more long term, but cheaper at the moment, and to have more users, right? So, me looking at something like Apple, I'm like, well, I personally think revenue share, things are going to actually go higher. And as you can see, even looking at the quarterly report, right? You saw that there was a surprise. There was more earnings, right? Estimated was 1.892, reported was 2.02. Revenue, same thing. It was a little bit higher, right? I personally think Apple, for example, is very bullish. Now, can it come lower? I don't know. But me personally, I'm gonna be looking at the Nasdaq. That's kind of like my leading indicator. If the Nasdaq can give us, which it already gave us a good retracement, like this was actually a very nice retracement. But if this wants to come lower in here, then that's when I will start to look at the companies like Apple. I will start to look at companies maybe like Amazon, right? These big companies, and that's really the first ones I will look at. Now, there are some smaller ones that's still big, right? Like Netflix, for example, that is a part of the NASDAQ that is at great opportunities at the moment. Again, a subscription based company. One thing I like about stocks, and this is my last thing I'm going to say about stocks, and I'll talk a little bit about crypto and then kind of end it out, is in stocks, it's a very easy question. It's easier question than crypto because in the stock market, we use these companies on a day to day. So I remember there was one of the first educators I ever kind of heard stocks from back in the day, and he said, the first question you got to ask yourself, what do you use on a day to day basis? Right? Are you on Netflix on a day-to-day basis, right? Do you watch Disney Plus? Does your kids watch Disney Plus? Do you go to Disney World? Do people around you go to Disney World, right? You got to ask yourself, do you have a Roku TV? Right? These are things that you can start asking yourself and say, okay, well, I'm going to start investing in things that I'm actually using because guess what? If you're using it, that means most likely more people are using it. If you have an Apple, an iPhone, right? Are other people having iPhones? Yes. Are they only increasing? Yes. Even with the new MacBook Neo, if you guys didn't hear, it's a cheap laptop. Why did they do that? They did that so they can cater to people who can't afford a thousand, 1,200, 1,300 laptop, but they can't afford a $600 laptop, right? So think about what they're doing and ask yourself, is that worth investing my money into? Long term, not short term, not a 6 month period, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years when it comes to stocks and then indexes, honestly, for decades. Okay. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. That's basically my biggest thing when it comes to stocks. Now, when it comes to crypto, there's a couple of things. I actually, had some good conversation with one of the educators on our platform. His name is Jordan Morgan, and we were actually going back and forth. Actually, it's pretty cool that when you're here long enough, you kind of have more of a connection. But one thing I realized is this: number one, in crypto, you only want to start looking at the bigger cryptos. I've said this before, and I'm going to say this over and over again. This is just something I'm going to say. If I'm wrong, it is what it is. A lot of the cryptos that will not be here in the next 5 to 10 years. I don't think we're in the same market that we used to be. Now, is crypto going to stay? Of course, I think it is. But I really believe there's going to be a bigger separation. Because you got to think about it. I don't know. From what I've studied, from what I've seen, back in the day in the stock market, there was a lot of like companies, right? Even today, there's a lot of companies, right? But you got to realize that anything that starts, there's a lot of creation, right? It's a lot of exploration, right? There's a lot of it. But what happens over time of maturity? Some of it has to die, right? And the strong ones stay. And believe it or not, fortunate or unfortunately, there is something called monopolization. I don't care what the state law is or whatever it is that you can't do it. It is a thing. So there is going to be monopolization in crypto. So there can't be monopolization with 1,000 cryptos. There can only be maybe with 100, maybe even less, right? For like the big ones. And that's what I start to ask myself now on a day-to-day basis. Right. So I'm looking at CoinGecko, for example, a website you can look at all the cryptos, Yahoo Finance for stocks, right? And I start to ask myself, which of the big ones are actually could actually be here, right? John Luke talked about one that I'm very highly favored of, because of the adoption and everything, and one of them is Ondo. And its crazy thing is that it's a main cap coin, but it's one of the lower main cap coins. So it's not just about being in the main cap because all of these are main caps. Main caps is anything over a 1 billion market cap. So anything from just crazy how the market is now. But from this up is technically a main cap. But just because it's a main cap doesn't mean it's a good project to invest in. The questions you got to ask yourself again with the stock market, but it's a little bit harder with the crypto market just because we might not use it on a day to day basis. But you want to ask yourself, what are the partnerships with these companies, right? Who is in these, well, not companies, these cryptos, right? Who is in these cryptos? And the money that's in these cryptos is something that is lasting, right? We have some meme coins in here. Am I saying meme coins are bad? No. But meme coins are not something that money is lasting in it, right? It's money that goes in and out, something like Shiba. So you can invest in it, you can get that, you can trade it, right? But when it comes to investing longer term, you got to ask yourself what money is in there and is that money long lasting? So the projects that I'm personally looking at right now, that we've been talking about, obviously starting with Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is the first one I'm looking at. I personally want to see it come here. But like I said earlier, I would not be surprised at all, in my opinion, if we saw something here. Now, I'm going to be waiting for this, not necessarily. I personally like the 50s here, right? Before it goes higher. But I would not be surprised if we see something here. So just stay very patient for a lot of these things and a lot of worry. Now, the next thing is I want to look at Ethereum. Okay, Ethereum is one of the very few blockchains that are actually being used on a day-to-day basis. Very few, and a lot of people say, and there's a lot of things out there, and I do see that Ethereum is basically owned by the U.S. government, right? Because of again the monopolization that does exist. Just FYI. So I personally do like Ethereum. I think Ethereum is something that's going to lead a lot of these other different projects, and some projects will blockchains won't even exist or die in the next 5 to 10 years, and some of them will stay. And I think Ethereum is kind of there for it to sustain. As well with Bitcoin. Obviously, Bitcoin is king. At the end of the day, I see Bitcoin like the gold, just long term. If all cryptos were to die, which I'm not saying it's gonna happen, I see the one being here long term is Bitcoin, just because of the reputation it has, and what they really want to do with it, right? But Ethereum again is a functioning project that is being used. I like Ethereum anything below 2K. I'm looking for lower areas for re-entry around 1600. So same thing. If Bitcoin goes down, then we're gonna have Ethereum, right? I'm still waiting for the depression side of Bitcoin, because in my opinion, and I might be the only one that says this, we are in the bear market. People don't say that. It's true. The bullish market did happen. People are like, "Oh, the bull market never happened." It did. It just only happened really with Bitcoin. It's just the reality. We have to understand the reality, which is not a reality. I had to understand the reality as well, right? There was a lot of opportunity that I didn't take advantage of, me thinking that it was going to be the same cycle that it was here, but it's not always going to be like that. So Bitcoin had his bull run, right? Now we're in the bear market. I personally think this can be the time during the bear market that we're going to be in depression, similar to what we were here, to see upside. My best piece of advice: collect some Bitcoin. That's something I myself I'm telling myself over and over again, because it's again, it's not about the 10, 15, 20x in 6 months. Those opportunities can happen, but they won't always will. But the person who looks for the 2, 3x over year after year or after a couple years over time, if you just do the math, it compounds. And that's the perspective you want to have. So Bitcoin, Ethereum is what I'm looking at. Like I said, I really like Ondo. Ondo is a project that has a lot of opportunity. I wouldn't invest as much as you're doing in Bitcoin and Ethereum, unless you're doing low capital and it's like high risk. That's fine. I think Ondo is a high risk play, but it's a pretty confident high risk play for a lot of different reasons. Again, everything that Jalung talked about, but looking at the chart, there's a lot of volume here, right? There's high volume, mean there's a lot of money coming in. And you can see that there was high volume here, and now we're collecting volume again. And the crazy thing is that we're in a bear market, right? Also keep in mind, Ondo has actually never seen a bull market in altcoins. Like it's never seen, it wasn't here when Ethereum did this. Ondo wasn't here. So what happens when Ethereum does this? Right? Again, all coins follow. So that's why I'm pretty bullish on Ondo as well. And even projects like Chainlink. Chainlink is a very good like point in crypto. They actually work with every blockchain at this point. They're like the center of the data of the blockchain. So if the blockchain is here, Chainlink is here. If the blockchain is not here, Chainlink is not here. So it's kind of like saying like, if any, like I like to say like Chase, for example, is like the banking industry, right? If Chase is gone, I think the banking industry is done. This is my opinion. But if the banking industry is here, Chase will be here. That's just my perspective, because they're the big boys. We have bigger things to worry if something happens with Chase. Like, to be honest, I think the whole industry might be done for. But anyways, those are the big ones. Now, a couple ones that I'm being worried about. One of them is Solana. I'm starting to ask myself the questions, is Solana something that is really being used? I want you guys to realize for the last couple of years, actually, since this run, Solana has mainly been used for meme coins, right? So I asked myself the same question I told you guys earlier, is what am I investing in has money that is long lasting? Right now, for the time being, I don't see too much of that in Solana. So I'm not saying don't invest in it, get out of it. I'm not necessarily saying that. I'm just saying starting to keep your eyes peeled, start staying a little bit more educated about what's happening, and make that decision for yourself. But my personal opinion, this is the time to really be invested in maybe 4 to 5 cryptos. That's just something that I've analyzed myself in the last week, to be honest, because I'm developing on a week to week, conversations I'm having, things I'm learning. So I'm being very, very picky with the ones, and I would rather stay with the bigger ones that might give a 2, 3x than have more risk on the table, depending on your risk tolerance, of course, right? And also understanding kind of where the market is going. But that's really my perspective. Last thing I like to talk about is the fear and greed index. In crypto, we have a lot of fear, but we're growing, right? The fear isn't as low as it used to be. In the stock market, we came into fear, right? So again, I'm being patient. But what can we see in the next couple of weeks? Can we see the stock market go lower? A little bit, right? S&P just high. I do want to see this come here. Minimum here. I think this will be the same time we'll be here. And I think this will continue just bullish, in my opinion. So again, opportunity lies when most people aren't looking at it. Right now, I think crypto market is looking a good opportunity. Stock market, I think, is loading up to give that opportunity. And I really believe going into the 27, 28, 29 years, yeah, I think things are going to get pretty bullish. And then it's just going from there. But other thing I will say as well, start looking at commodities. I'm starting to look at something like silver. Literally, like this week, I was looking at it. I'm going to be collecting some silver. I was waiting for these areas. I've talked about these areas on these sessions. Gold has opportunity, but if you're looking at percentage opportunity, silver is the play. Just me being honest, right? Silver has 100% increase to the all-time high. Gold has 30%. I'm not saying it's bad. If you're playing with higher capital, so like, I'm talking about like 6 figs, something like that, or maybe tens of thousands, then I would say gold because it's more like less volatile. But if you're like newer to commodities, I would say silver personally. That's just my POV. And I think silver obviously has shown its sustainability, and we're literally at the yeah, like look at this chart, right? I think this chart can just look like this, and maybe next couple years give us opportunities that our kids will say like, damn, like you were in silver at $50. Same thing that they said with gold. When gold was around here, think about this. Gold was around here in 2014, right? This is a 5x. Obviously, it's a long time, but 5x over your money is honestly an amazing thing. And imagine how much time they had, right, to collect. So just keep that in mind. Again, you want to have a diversification. You want to be too diversified, but you want to ask yourself, what are the things that are going to be here long term? Obviously, depending on your situation. But with saying that, that's basically it for me, fam. Hope you guys learned something today. Hope you guys got some game. Obviously, we're going to keep updating you guys in the markets. But right now, there's a lot of good plays that, in my opinion, are kind of ready to go. That we've been talking about, things like Netflix, things like even Disney. I really like Disney where it's at as well. PayPal had a surgence, had a move up. If PayPal has any retracement under $50, that's a great opportunity for your portfolio. Okay. So again, stay plugged in if you're a part of Zinrai and a part of what we have here in Powerhouse. Stay plugged into our education because that's where we're getting it from ourselves and that's where we're maximizing it to our best of our ability. So again, hope you guys have a great Saturday. I appreciate you, John Luke, for hosting this and getting things rocking. And I'm excited for what's to come. Again, if you have somebody that wants to learn this, go out, reach out to them, let them know that we're here every single Saturday. And like we say, the best is always yet to come.